Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your break and are enjoying the event so far today. For anyone just joining us, my name is Emma Cook. I'm Commercial Manager for Zevo Health. So thanks for your patience with getting this session kicked off. And we've had a little bit of technical difficulty with Dr. Ovo from Angarda Síochána. So Helen and I are going to kickstart the session this afternoon. So really delighted with the opportunity to be speaking to you this afternoon, Helen.
Hi, Emma. Thank you.
Great. Really, I suppose, all about workplace health and well-being, what it means to you, your organization's approach and journey so far, challenges that you've experienced, and really your view on the future of health and well-being. So for the audience, Helen is Global HR for head for Morgan McKinley. So Helen has been working for Morgan McKinley for almost 14 years, and for over 4 of those years has been in the position of Global Head of HR. Helen is a strategic HR leader with responsibility for development of culture, talent, and the ways of working. Helen is a specialist in global strategic HR, digital innovation, international employment law, employee engagement, people development, comp and benefits, to name but a few. So Helen, really excited to hear how Morgan McKinley approach workplace wellbeing on a global level. So just a reminder to the audience, look, we'd really love to have you involved in this session. So please do post any questions that you have for myself or Helen in the community chat panel on the right hand side of your screen. So to really start the discussion, Helen, and maybe before we get talking about the role of health and well-being in Morgan McKinley, it would be really great to hear, from you, like what health and well-being means to you as an individual. So yeah, hand it over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Emma. Thank you for your kind introduction, and hi everyone. I hope you're all having a really good day at the Wellness Festival so far. I suppose, look, when I think about health and wellness from an individual perspective, I think it's a really important question actually, because it starts from within. And if you don't have self-care and look after your own health and well-being, you can't be expected to look after it for others, be it your colleagues, your team, your family, and your community, I guess. So for me, health and well-being is really about happiness, contentment, and feeling I have a good balance of all the various responsibilities that I have in my life, be that work responsibilities, parenting, home and family responsibilities, and so on. So I think this last year has been a challenge for so many people, and I think when there's a lot going on, it can be very easy to step into kind of an overwhelmed situation. So really taking time to look after yourself and to exercise that self-care is so important. So I always say carve out a little bit of time, even if you have a really busy, hectic schedule, try and carve out some time for you, because if you don't do it, nobody else will. Mm-hmm. And if you're not feeling good and well, you're not much good to anybody that you're responsible for or looking after or caring for. So that's really it from my perspective. I talk about happiness and contentment, and I think people sometimes think wellness is all about your health and your emotional and mental wellness, which is a huge part of it. But if you're feeling happy, you're emotionally very connected and you're feeling really, I think that's such a key part and a key component of wellness. And in Morgan McKinley, we actually recently did a happiness at work pulse survey in Ireland. We have a happiness index that we work through in some of our global locations to see and determine how happy our people are at work. Because we talk so much about engagement and how important it is, but that's really tapping into the rational side of people's brain. That's engagement, but happiness is the hearts and minds, and it's that emotional connection. So for me, I think if you're feeling happy, you're on such a good first step of really managing your own health and wellness.
Mm, exactly, and then and you kind of bringing that into the organization. Like obviously you've been with Morgan McKinley for 14 years, which is quite a tenure. So how have you seen health and well-being, I suppose, develop over that period of time? When you first joined the organization, what did health and well-being look like then to
Gosh.
what it kind of looks like now?
Gosh, well, I tell you, when I joined Morgan McKinley, and actually, I I've actually been with this group. It's a broader group of Premier Recruitment, which is the holding company of Morgan McKinley in Ireland, since 2001. So even longer. So really, I'm showing my age now, but I joined straight from university, and it was a very different world of work back then. And since I've been in HR and Morgan McKinley, we've obviously grown to a massive global organization, a people solutions organization, and I have been delighted to be on that journey with Morgan McKinley. But health and wellness really wasn't, I suppose, an organizational objective or strategic objective as it would be now. Certainly, our culture is a very flat and informal culture, and there's quite a family community feel about our business. So, a really positive, fun place to work. But certainly mental health in particular wouldn't have been on a lot of organizational agendas up until maybe the last 5 to 10 years or so. And I think particularly in the last I suppose year plus, particularly during the pandemic, mental health has really come to the fore, because people have been locked away and missing their families and parenting from home and from work and childcare and elder care and all the added stresses that we have had to kind of encounter over this last kind of 14, 15 months. So that has an impact on your mental health. And, increasingly we and our other organizations regard health and wellness at work as really encompassing that mental kind of that ability to have very positive mental health and to look at mental health as health, not just as a condition or as something that happens if you're suffering from anxiety or stress or another mental condition. Like it's your mental health is there's a continuum of it, and you can be anything from in crisis to thriving and everything in between. So so from an organizational perspective, I think the last particularly the last 16 months have seen great challenges for people. And, from our perspective, we've really tried to check in with how our people are doing. Initially, physically, are you set up? Do you have the right, home office set up in your environment, wherever you may be? Like that was everyone's immediate priority. But then as the weeks went on, it turned into months. Like, how are people finding the challenges that were presented to them as we were catapulted into remote working from a mental health perspective? Were they feeling isolated? Did they have enough support networks? Those individuals who maybe were living very far from family and couldn't get to them to see them. Equally, we all have had bereavements. Many colleagues have suffered bereavements, other crises during the pandemic, and people haven't been able to access their usual support networks that they would in normal times. So how, as an organization, we really try to adopt a very people-focused and people-first strategy when thinking about our approach, I guess, to work and life at work during the pandemic.
Yeah, and like when you talk about the kind of the people strategy element of it, and obviously, that's kind of an area of expertise for you. How, when you're thinking about health and well-being and what the program or what the strategy is going to be for the year ahead or the 5 years, like how does Morgan McKinley approach that? Is there a team? Is there a team internally that come together that you map out the year? I think that would be really nice to hear for the audience. Really how it's all created. And where does it begin from?
Yeah, sure. So this year is our first year that we've had a quarterly focus on 4 different topics. So when we were mapping out our people and wellness strategy in Q4 of last year, and we would do that within the people team, which would incorporate HR, learning and development, and talent acquisition, and we would work very closely with the leadership team across our business. So we all knew like health and wellness is front page news everywhere, so it had to form a big part of our people strategy. So typically we would have done in the past, every year we do a wellbeing week, and we would do various ad hoc wellness events throughout the year, but they would be a little bit ad hoc and probably not massively coordinated at the beginning of the year. They'd be kind of as you go. So what we decided that we would do for this year is we'd have a very strategically mapped out roadmap, I guess, of wellness activities for the year ahead. So we split our strategy into 4 quarterly quadrants. The first was Move, which was all, and that was Q1 of this year. So that was all about physical activity and fitness and wellness from a physical perspective. And we did the Zevo Fittest Workplace Challenge, which was fantastic. So we did
were
that.
Right up at the top.
Oh, we came third, I think, in the end. I know, God, they were a very competitive bunch in Morgan McKinley, but that was a fantastic opportunity to get everyone together in the darkest days of lockdown, like January, February, March, really cold, miserable, dark months. And, you know, it was great fun actually doing that.
Yes.
And in other locations across our global business, we did virtual marathons. We introduced walking meetings, also known as feetings. So that was really cool. And, you know, it just got people out, and they might not be meeting due to restrictions. They might not be able to meet colleagues or team members, but they could do walking calls. So
I think what's really nice about that as well, and one thing that we'd heard from the Fittest Workplace Challenge was, you know, when you're joining on a call or a meeting, it's so nice not to be talking about something COVID related.
Yeah.
You know, you had a topic or something you were all doing together as a community. And
it's brilliant, and it's so important. Physical fitness and activity is so important. So that has been quarter 1. Quarter 2 we're in now. We're just coming to the end of it. I can't believe it. And the theme was nurture. So all about mental health and resilience. So we've actually just finished today. We did a 2-day mental health champion training course, and that was with 16 delegates from across our global business. So we also appointed wellness champions globally, because it's all very well for the people team and leadership to come up with a strategy, but the execution and the embedding of it, it really has to be driven locally by champions and influencers in the business. So we worked with the business to identify a number of people in every region. So we're across 10 countries globally. So every region has a wellness champion. And those people are people that are particularly interested in wellness, and they're influencers in their region. They're not all leaders. Some of them are, some of them aren't, but they do have influence in this area, and they can really help execute and embed any of the wellness strategies and initiatives that we're rolling out. So we just did 2 days there of mental health champion training, which is excellent. I have to say, Avril Ivory was absolutely brilliant, and you know, the feedback has been really, really good. So we're all motivated and ready for action. And other events, you know, that we have done during the quarter, resilience workshops, just a general focus on mental health and minding your mind and building resilience. Moving into quarter 3, our topic is sustain. So it's all about building healthy habits. So everything from nutrition to, again, just incorporating good, healthy habits, maybe it's mindfulness, meditation, all the different ways in which we can kind of build our immunity and build our health and resilience. And then our last quarter, the theme is belong. And this is something that is really important to us in Morgan McKinley culturally, because we've just come out of, lockdown has been different across our global footprint. So Singapore are back in lockdown now, and India obviously are in a very serious lockdown, but Australia are out of it. Tokyo are partially there, but getting there. So, and Toronto are coming out of it. You know, so
that was been challenging. Managing the different locations and where each one is at.
Yeah, and culturally it's different, and you know, there's a lot of challenges, I guess, when you're managing people and the people agenda for a global pandemic. But one thing that is really important to us is to get that sense of belonging and maintain that sense of belonging in our business. And when people have been apart for such a long time in various regions, we will obviously start a kind of a return to workplaces in Ireland anyway from September in a hybrid kind of flexible model. But we we know that people miss that connection, that opportunity to collaborate and have fun and engage with colleagues. Mm-hmm. So for us, it's perfectly timed in Q4 when hopefully we'll be out of the worst parts of the pandemic, fingers crossed, mm-hmm. and we'll be able to get together and collaborate and communicate more, and to really foster that sense of belonging, which is so important. You know, I know diversity inclusion is massively important, but we can't, you know, separate belonging from that, because you can have the most diverse workforce that has inclusive policies, and, you know, everybody's invited to all the different events and meetings and sessions, and it's very, you know, we're ticking all the D&I boxes, but if people don't feel that they belong, mm-hmm. all the other stuff isn't really important, and it's not mm-hmm. really working. So, you know, we've a number of activities that we're working with the wellness champions to map out for the rest of our year. But I guess, look, that just works for us, and it's been really positively received internally. It demonstrates that there's a real focus on wellness in all the different elements, whether it's mental, physical, emotional, and you know, it's people have responded to it really well. And equally, it's really important to us that we collaborate and get feedback from our teams around wellness and what it means to them. And just like at the beginning of our conversation, you asked, what does wellness mean to me? Like, everyone has an individual perception of what wellness and healthy well-being and all that means to them. So we do the same. We ask through various pulse surveys and check-ins and connect opportunities with our teams through leadership or the HR team or the people team generally. You know, what we can do and what strategies we can execute and implement to really harness people's well-being, and so that they feel that you know, this is a very wellness focused organization.
Yeah, and I think just on that piece of kind of bringing the employees along the journey with you, you know, asking their opinions on, you know, what they feel is important from a well-being perspective for them, you know, working in the organization. We would often, you know, the burning question with HR is always around engagement, you know, and a lot of it really comes back to, you know, that the communication strategy. So what I'd love to really hear more about, like, how do you approach communicating what you're going to be rolling out to the organization? Does it come from the top down? Like, obviously you have then that next tier where it's the champions across the different locations, but is there a reason that you moved to that way? You know, was it a kind of a way before where you were rolling maybe wellbeing initiatives out on more of an ad hoc basis, and maybe they weren't being as well received or engaged with, and you kind of felt, right, we need to, you know, change things up here and look at a kind of a wider communication strategy as the organization grew from, you know, an international perspective. So if you could, maybe kind of give us a little bit of insight into that kind of communication element.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Look, I think, you know, we all are very busy, and I guess, you know, since we've gone remote more than ever, there's a lot of information coming at people. We're, in many ways, remote working has put us all on a very level playing field, because we're all attending meetings. We can get people together quite easily through virtual means, so we don't have to have the in-person group meetings. So we can work through communication quite easily in a remote way. So I think, I suppose, why we wanted to do the annualized approach was really to present a roadmap of wellness activities to our people, and we wanted to package it like we have our own kind of quarterly logo that we use, and we branded it. And I guess that's just something that people know, oh yeah, it's Q2, it's nurture, it's mental health, and, you know, they know what's coming down the track, rather than, you know, invites going out ad hoc. People might miss it, they might not know what's happening. They, you know, it's just to have a more streamlined approach, I think was important to us around the strategy. But I guess in terms of communication, so we use a platform, very good platform called WorkVivo, which has really come into its own. Very very fit for purpose, in particularly when everyone's working remote. And it's like an app that people can download on the phones, or they can look at it on their desktop. And we have spaces dedicated to wellness within that. And there's calendars of events that we post on that. So that's a kind of a one-stop shop that you can have all of our communications updates housed on. Equally, so that's one avenue, and people can access it whenever they want, like, because it's like an Instagram style app. They can go on it in the evening or in the morning or whenever during the day. They're not looking out for emails going, I think I saw something about a fun run. They'll be able to find it in a dedicated wellness space, which is good. And also, since we've been remote, we've probably increased meetings with to a point that we haven't got to Zoom fatigue, thankfully. But we do a Friday huddle every Friday morning. We do them when we're in the office, but we're not all in the office, so we do it now virtually. And people can go for a walk at the park, just dial in, and we just talk about what's going on that week, wins, challenges, any social events that are coming up, be they virtual events, which they all are at this point, or any charity stuff we're working on, and again, any wellness stuff that's happening. Every Friday for a couple of Fridays before and after the Fittest Workplace Challenge, we were gearing up for that. But so it's a good opportunity for us to kind of share what's happening and drive engagement. I think the Wellness Champions has been really good in driving engagement as well, because you don't want it to be all top down. You want everyone to feel kind of part of the journey. So the Wellness Champions are just working away on teams, and it's not always the same voices at the month-end meeting or the huddles at the end of the week or the kickoff meetings. So it's new voices with different perspectives talking about different events. So that kind of gathers people's interest as well. And look, communication is probably one of the biggest challenges for so many organizations. It's really hard to get it right. So we try lots of things. Some work, some don't. But we always will try new ways of kind of cascading messages.
And just like on the topic then of kind of the wellbeing champions, so that would be a question that, when people are looking, let's say, for example, the mental health champion training, it's looking at, well, who do I choose to put forward? Or so how did Morgan McKinley go about choosing? Like, did you choose people specifically to assume that role, or did you kind of put it out to a network of people and ask people to come forward?
We did a bit of both. So, for example, in our APAC region, we have 5 offices in APAC, and there's probably about 50 people in each of those offices with one managing director. Now, I wouldn't know all of the individuals, so I would have liaised with the managing directors and asked them, just explained what we were doing, what the strategy was, and said, look, we want to have one wellness champion from each region. Your team's best, and who is the best person. So some of them were leaders. Some of them were non-leaders, they just were, fitness leaders, or they were leading in other aspects of health and wellness and had a strong influence in their area. They might have been particularly involved in the community or something like that. So it was more, we put it out to the business, and people, they weren't so much asked as there was recommendations put forward, and if people were particularly interested, like, there was a bit of a commitment. So we spent 8 hours over the last 2 days doing this training. We've done the Ohana suicide awareness training as well. Like, so there's a bit of training involved, and then you've got a bit of a responsibility to impart your knowledge and work with leadership to really embed a culture of wellness. So you need to have some influence, and there's a bit of work involved in it. So we wanted people that were very committed. So it was more of a kind of a collaboration with leadership across the global business. And also, the leaders know who's particularly interested in wellness topics, and that person would actually be really good in that. So I think, we've got 16 now globally. I would say we could probably get another 16, easily as well, because it is an area that's so topical and so relevant and very purposeful as well for people. So it was really easy, actually. Like, no, we didn't have to ask anybody or beg anybody to get involved. Like it was, we probably could have, as I said, a lot more. So it was quite straightforward. Just a few conversations and a couple of emails explaining what we were trying to do, and then the names started pouring in.
Great. Yeah. And like just, on obviously, you spoke at the beginning about, let's say, looking at the last 16 months and, mental health being kind of a real focus point in the organization. And obviously this quarter for you in this quadrant. So the Central Statistics Office completed a recent piece of research looking at the social impact of COVID-19 on individuals. So the survey results measured the percentage of respondents that reported feeling, downhearted or depressed all or most of the time. So in April 2020, 5.5% of respondents reported feeling downhearted or depressed all or most of the time. 7 months later, November 2020, this increased to 11.5%, and then to 15.1% in February 2021. So, Helen, like in your opinion, do you think there'll be long-term implications to mental health for employees when the pandemic subsides?
Look, I think there could be some element, I guess, if you want to call it some sort of PTSD, as people kind of come back into the real world post pandemic. And even anecdotally, like I'm in the office today, I don't come into the office regularly. It's open for those that need to come in, and I just said, just in case my Wi-Fi fails me during this, I'd come in. But thank
God your Wi-Fi didn't fail you, because I would have been the only person.
I know, yeah. You would have been having a conversation with yourself. But there's a number of people here today, and our demographic is broad, but there's quite a lot of young people. Like recruitment tends to attract a kind of a younger demographic, and these people love coming into the office because they might be living in a small house share apartment, no garden, nowhere to go, and very isolated. So to come into the office, even though there's very few people here and it's all strict protocols, it's nice. It's a social. It makes work that bit more interactive and collaborative and social. So I think where there's people that haven't had any opportunity to engage and collaborate with their friends, with family, with the community in general, I think you will get a point where people there will be some lasting consequences of that. Now, I'm not a psychologist, and I just don't know clinically will people just bounce back really quickly. But there is a lot of fear, I think, and even how we're managing the return to work planning, we're doing it extremely carefully, very collaboratively. Like we're doing regular pulse checks to check in with how people are feeling, because habits quickly form, and people have been working remotely for 15, 16 months now. And then to expect everyone to come back in without any additional flexibility and understanding and compassion and empathy to how challenging this experience has been for so many people isn't wise. So I think we need to make sure that everyone is comfortable, with what the approach is. Under extreme circumstances, people have performed phenomenally well. Like when you look back at it, homeschooling and real genuine fear of the virus and family members getting it, and it's been a really tough time for so many people. So I think that probably will there will be some scars of that, I would imagine. But I do believe if something good out of the pandemic is that mental health is really being talked about a lot. It's been destigmatized. You have politicians talking about it. It's out in the media. I mean, all those surveys that are constantly we're reading about as well. So, at the end of the day, you're always on some level of the mental health continuum, whether it's crisis, struggling, getting by, thriving, or excelling. Like somewhere along that continuum, we all sit. And sometimes we're in the struggling category, and sometimes we're in the thriving category. But that's okay, and we need to know what we need to do to try and get the support that we need, and to support our colleagues, as they kind of navigate through the mental health kind of continuum. So I think yes, I do think there will be a lasting impact for some people. I mentioned at the beginning, like there have been people that have lost loved ones during the pandemic. I lost my sister-in-law last June. We couldn't do the normal funeral,
Yeah.
and you can't hug people, and it was just really a difficult time for the family. But you kind of get through it, and I think there will be people, and we are lucky, we're a very close family, and we've all supported each other. But there will be other people that maybe family members they've lost family members that live in another country, and they couldn't get home. Like I know colleagues have lost parents in other locations, and they just haven't been able to get there. So I think those kind of things people need to work through, and and focus on self-care and resolving any issues that they might have arisen during the last kind of period of time. So I think people there will be some lasting impact, but also I think there's lots of opportunity for people to talk through how it's impacted, and it's a very safe environment in the current climate to do that.
No, exactly. And what you had touched on there, just about returning to the office as well. So we'd had another conversation previously, and you were talking about, trying to avoid kind of this two-tier approach of some people returning back to the office, some people not. So how is, Morgan McKinley approaching returning to the workplace, and how is that being communicated to staff?
Well, we're actually doing an all hands tomorrow morning. I'm just really kind of outlining the roadmap of what our plan is when we're returning. So in Ireland, and because we're in different parts of the journey, I suppose, outside of Ireland, but given we're talking to Ireland today, we're looking at a September return, and very much hybrid, and working with our teams to encourage as much collaboration as possible, but also to make sure people are feeling very comfortable with how we return, I guess. We won't be having everyone back, because with social distancing, we can't allow that, or that isn't possible with the COVID protocols. But I think we're approaching it very much as H2. So not even from September onwards, September till the end of Q1 2022, we're going to be just seeing how things are progressing and how people are, I suppose, readapting to life back in the workplace in some capacity, working very much with individuals who, might want something different after having kind of over a year of kind of remote work in their life, and having, maybe done really well and found that really great. And equally, there's others that can't wait to come back into the office and miss the I suppose the camaraderie and the fun element of the workplace. So as I said earlier, like it's all about collaboration and communication and checking in with people, and not just doing a blanket comms and saying this is what's happening, and and off I go. Like we'll put out the news and the updates of how we are mapping out the return, and over the next couple of months we'll be just, I suppose, reorganizing offices and making sure everything is the best possible place for people to be. But we'll have an open forum for communication, for comms, for feedback as we work through it. And we'll, leadership will work with their teams to ensure that everybody is comfortable. But I think, I suppose the key for us is communication and collaboration. And also remembering back to the good days pre-pandemic. There's been a lot of good things that we've learned, that we can all work remotely very successfully and be very productive. But before the pandemic, when we were all in offices, there was a lot of great things as well, and there was lots of fun social events and Christmas parties and summer parties that we haven't had, and they're the kind of, and the chats in the kitchen and going for lunches, they're the lovely fun parts of work, and work is such a big part of people's life. But equally, we want people to enjoy the benefits of working from home, and not having to commute, and being able to drop kids to school, or bring, if anyone like me has got a dog during lockdown, bring the dog for a walk, and those kind of things. So I think there is an opportunity to get a really good balance actually post-pandemic. And in our training actually this morning,
actually just on that,
oh yes,
I'm just, we've got 2 minutes left. We've done well anyway, but there was a question in from Rachel saying what kind of topics were included in the recent Wellbeing Champion training?
Great. Okay, good question. So it was covered, we did it over 2 days, but it's an 8-hour training session, but we did 2 days to accommodate our APAC time zones. So it was everything from just an overall introduction to I suppose mental health and wellness, how there was sections on myths and facts on it, there was a lot of stats. There was quite a lot of neuroscience, which I found really interesting, and I think it just really I suppose emphasizes the importance of mental health as being something that there's a lot of clinical background to, and it links so closely to performance and productivity and engagement. There was a section on managing mental health during crises, and how to be, from a mental health champion point of view, how to support teams and colleagues and know when to suggest someone is referred to either an EAP, a GP, or another support service. There was equally a part, and it's really important, tricky part to kind of listen to and hear about, but on self-harm and suicide ideation. And this is something that unfortunately is really common in Ireland and other locations. And there was some interesting stats about the age that people are the least happy in their life, according to, this is a global study, and that age is 47. So I'm not quite there yet, but God, I better watch out for the next few years. But it's interesting because we did a little bit, there's a lot of group work, and we're like, which age do you think it is? And a lot of people thought, maybe it's when you're young and you don't know what you're doing, and maybe it's when it's this. But actually, your mid-40s to early 50s are a time when people can be quite, they hit a bit of a brick wall, and they're like, is this where my career is at? What about, and they're dealing with maybe teenage children and elderly parents, and there's a lot of challenges, and equally, unfortunately, suicide that's the highest prevalence in terms of age category of suicide in Ireland, which is really interesting. So we learned a lot, I guess, around how to understand mental health, how to support colleagues and friends and family, I guess, as well, and in times of challenge from a mental health point of view. And equally the importance of self-care, because as I said at the beginning, if you're not feeling good, it's very hard to help others. So it was very worthwhile now.
We've got one other question from Lisa. So Helen, I'm wondering how you define the role of the Wellbeing Champions to get consistency across locations and ensure clear boundaries for all of the champions.
Yeah, well, I suppose we loosely defined the role profile, if you want to call it that, of the wellness champion, because actually wellness is quite different in all of our regional locations. So culturally, what a wellness champion would do and the kind of activities and initiatives that would really drive high levels of engagement in India would be different to Sydney, to Toronto. So basically, I suppose the role profile was broad in that their role was to work with the global people team to help embed the various, I suppose, global wellness strategies and initiatives that we were running, but that they would put the regional lens on it. So, if we're doing like a fun 5K in June, we can't do that in India because they're in full lockdown. So the wellness champion would go, okay, we want to do a global 5K, but we can't go out because of the lockdown, or maybe it's for other reasons, for various other reasons. Maybe the run isn't a good example, but they would find a way to make it work that people would be engaged in a physical activities. It could be a virtual run, or it could be some other activity. And equally, you have to be sensitive to the cultural differences between different locations. So, like, the overall profile of the wellness champion is that they work, that they stay connected with the people team and with the HR team who are driving the strategy, and that we would have regular meetings to talk about the general initiatives and how we can tweak and adjust and adapt them to suit the regional areas. So it's not really a one-size-fits-all approach. It has to kind of, I suppose, for it to be engaging, it has to be very relatable locally.
Great. Okay, Helen, we have gone slightly over time. So look, I just want to say a big thank you to you for joining us this afternoon. Some really great insights from Morgan McKinley, from yourself, around how you're approaching workplace wellbeing. So look, thank you so much for your time. So for the audience, to finish off the last discussion of the day, we have our very own Davina Ramkassoon, Health and Wellbeing Director of Zevo, Lorna Layden, HR Business Partner of Diageo, and Professor Mark Cropley, who will be discussing the right to disconnect. So really hope you stay on for the final session and enjoy.
Thanks, Emma.
Thanks, Helen.